You must sleep with my boss, else this marriage is over.
Please, please, I can't do this. I am your wife.
It was a cold Friday night when everything about Stella's world began to crumble. For 5 years, she believed she was happily married to the man of her dreams. Her husband, Henry, was a hard-working man, always full of ambition and sweet promises. They didn't have much, but they had love. Or at least, that was what Stella thought. Every day, Eric came home talking about his boss, Mr. Raymond. He described him as a rich man, powerful and proud, the kind of man everyone feared in the office. But one evening, Eric came home with a strange look on his face. His eyes were red and his heart was heavy. He sat on the edge of their bed, his hands shaking like a man who had lost everything. When Stella asked what was wrong, Harry took a deep breath and said, "There is something I need you to do for me." His tone was serious, almost desperate. Stella's heart skipped a beat. She could tell whatever he wanted to say would change everything. Then he said it, the words that broke her spirit. "Mr. Raymond promised to promote me, but he asked for something in return." Stella looked confused. "Something like what?" she asked softly. Harry looked down, ashamed. His voice trembled. "He wants to sleep with you." For a few seconds, the room went silent. It felt like time stopped. Stella stared at him, hoping it was a bad joke. But Harry wasn't joking. He couldn't even look her in the eye. Tears gathered in Stella's eyes as she whispered, "Harry, how can you even say that? I am your wife." Harry stood up, walked around hopelessly, and said, "You don't understand, Stella. This promotion is my only chance to make it in life." He knelt in front of her, begging. He told her that if he got the promotion, their life would change forever. They would move to a better house, buy a car, and start living like the people she admired. Stella couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her husband, the man who once promised to protect her, was now offering her body for his own gain. For days, she couldn't eat or sleep. She tried to convince herself it was a test. Maybe Harry was just joking. Maybe he would come to his senses. But Harry didn't stop. He cried, he begged, he even threatened to leave her if she refused. And like a woman blinded by love, Stella finally gave in. That Friday night, she dressed up in a red gown that Harry picked for her. Her hands were shaking as she got into the car. Harry drove her to Mr. Raymond's house in silence. The journey felt like a funeral procession. When they got there, Harry parked outside and told her, just do it for us, please." Stella looked at him, hoping he would stop her. But he didn't. He looked away, ashamed. She stepped out of the car, her legs weak and her heart heavy. Mr. Raymond opened the door, smiling like a man who had been waiting for his prey. He said softly, "Come in, Stella. I have been expecting you." That night, inside that house, Stella lost everything. Her dignity, her peace, her self-worth. When it was over, she walked out trembling, her eyes red and swollen. Harry was waiting in the car, pretending everything was normal. He looked at her and said quietly, It's over. Thank you for doing it for us." But nothing felt over for Stella. Something inside her had died. That night, she lay beside Harry, staring at the ceiling, wishing it was all a dream. She wanted to hate him, but she couldn't. She still loved him, even though he destroyed her. And as she closed her eyes, she whispered to herself, maybe things will get better. But deep down, she knew that night was the only beginning of her pain. Weeks passed after that terrible night, but nothing felt the same between Stella and Harry. Every time she looked at him, she remembered the moment he sold her body for his success. Harry got the promotion he wanted. He became the assistant manager of the company. Suddenly, there were more money, better clothes, and new friends. But even with all the new things, their home became a cold, silent war zone. Stella barely spoke to him. She cooked for him, cleaned the house, and smiled when necessary, but her heart was no longer there. At night, she pretended to be asleep just to avoid his touch. Sometimes she cried quietly so he wouldn't hear. Harry noticed the distance but didn't know how to fix it. He tried to act like nothing happened, hoping time would make her forget. But the truth was, Stella could forgive, but she could never forget. She carried shame in her heart like a heavy stone. And each time Harry smiled at his success, she felt a part of her soul burn. One evening, Stella was cooking. She overheard Henry talking on the phone. He was laughing loudly and saying, yes, I will be at the club tonight. Don't worry. I will bring her next time. Her heart froze. She felt her heart jump into her throat. Bring who next time? When Harry ended the call, Stella walked up to him and asked, Harry, what does that mean? Who are you talking to? Who are you bringing to the club next time? Harry's face changed immediately. He forced a smile and said, Stella, you are overthinking things. It is just office talk. But Stella knew it wasn't just office talk. The tone in his voice was different, proud and careless. He wasn't the man she married anymore. Days turned into a week, and Harry started coming home late. He said it was office work, but the smell of alcohol and perfume on his shirts told another story. Sometimes, when Stella asked questions, he shouted at her. He called her ungrateful and said, I did everything for us. Do you think I wanted you to sleep with him? I did it for your future, for our future. Those words broke her all over again. She realized Henry was no longer ashamed. He was now comfortable with the evil he once feared. Soon, Stella stopped fighting. She stopped crying too. She became quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when pain becomes part of your life. One day, Stella found out she was pregnant. But instead of joy, fear filled her heart. She didn't know if the baby belonged to Harry or Mr. Raymond. She broke down on the bathroom floor, crying like a lost child. Harry came in and saw the test results in her hand. He smiled and said, Finally! God has blessed us. But Stella couldn't smile. She wanted to tell him the truth, but she didn't have the strength. So she kept the secrets to herself and prayed that the baby would look like Harry. Months passed and her pregnancy grew. Harry was proud, showing her off to his friends, calling her his queen. But behind those smiles, Stella was dying slowly inside. She couldn't sleep at night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Mr. Raymond's face. She saw the pain, the shame, the sin she couldn't undo. Sometimes she stood in front of the mirror and asked, Who am I now? She no longer recognized the woman staring back. Her eyes were empty. Her smile was gone. And deep down, she feared that God would punish her for what she did. The day she gave birth, Harry was overjoyed. It was a baby boy, healthy, beautiful, and handsome. Innocence filled the baby face. He named him David, saying, "This is the reward for all my struggles." But when Stella looked at the child, she saw something that made her heart sink. The baby's eye looked exactly like Mr. Raymond's. Her world went dark again. From that moment, Stella knew her nightmare was far from over. For a while, things looked peaceful. Harry was proud of the new position, his new car, and his new baby boy. He finally felt like a man who had made it in life. But Stella's peace never returned. Every night she watched Harry play with the baby, laughing and singing. But deep inside her, guilt was eating her alive. She tried to convince herself that David was Harry's child. She tried to pray the guilt away. But each time the baby opened his eyes, she saw Mr. Raymond's face staring back at her. Those sharp eyes, that same smile, it was haunting. When Harry wasn't home, Stella would cry while holding the baby, whispering, "I am sorry. I didn't want this." She loved the baby, but she couldn't stop the memories. She couldn't forget what happened that night. Months passed, and Harry began to notice how strange Stella had become. She barely smiled. She barely talked. Sometimes she would stare at the baby for a long minute without saying a word. One evening, he confronted her. "Stella, what is going on with you? You have been acting strange since David was born." She looked at him with tears in her eyes and said, "Harry, please don't ask me questions you don't want answers to." But Harry pushed harder. He shouted, "Tell me the truth, Stella. What is wrong with my wife?" Stella stood up slowly and said, You want the truth? Fine, fine. Look at your son carefully. Do you see those eyes? Do they look like yours?" Harry froze. He looked at her, confused. What are you saying?" he asked in a shaking voice. Stella's tears fell freely now. She said, "I don't know if this child is yours or your boss's. Harry, you pushed me into that man's bed. You forced me to do the unthinkable. Now, live with the consequences." Harry staggered back like a man who had been hit by thunder. He shook his head and refusing to believe it. No, Stella, don't say that again," he said, his voice trembling. But the truth had already landed like a storm. Harry's world began to crumble. He stared at the baby, searching for his reflection, but seeing another man's face instead. Anger filled him. He screamed, breaking a glass on the floor. He shouted, "You should have told me. You should have told me earlier." Stella fell to her knees, crying, "Do you... and do what, Harry? Won't you kill yourself? Won't you lose your job? You used me, Harry. You used me for your promotion. The house was filled with pain, shouting, and tears. Henry stormed out that night. He didn't return for 2 days. When he finally came back, his face was swollen from crying and drinking. He looked broken, completely destroyed. He dropped his car keys on the table and said, "I quit my job." Stella looked at him, shocked. What do you mean you quit? Harry said quietly, "I went to Mr. Raymond. I told him everything. I slapped him, cursed him, and walked away." Tears filled Stella's eyes again. She whispered, "Harry, what have you done?" Harry said, "I have done what I should have done from the start. I protected my wife, even if it is too late." But by then, it was already too late. The company fired Harry immediately. His name spread like wildfire across the industry. Nobody wanted him. Nobody wanted to hire him. Nobody wanted to hire the man who fought his boss. Bills started piling up. The rents became due. The car was taken back by the bank. They sold their furniture, one piece after another, just to survive. Stella watched helplessly as everything fell apart. But this time, she didn't complain. She didn't shout or blame him. She quietly supported him, just like she used to do in the beginning. She took small jobs to buy food. Sometimes she went hungry so her baby could eat. Henry changed completely. He became quiet, humble, and full of regrets. One night, he sat beside Stella and said softly, "You have every right to hate me, but you're still here. Why?" Stella looked at him, her eyes filled with tears, and said, "Because love is not about what we gain, Henry. It is about what we survive together." He broke down and cried like a child. That night, they held each other for the first time in a long time. There were no promises, no big speeches, just two broken people trying to heal. But life was still cruel. Not long after, Stella fell sick. Doctors said it was stress and depression. She became weak, pale, and fragile. Henry sold everything left to take care of her. He watched her fight for her life every single day. One evening, while lying in the hospital bed, Stella held Henry's hand and said, "I forgive you, but please, forgive yourself too." Henry couldn't hold back his tears. He said, "You lost everything because of me, Stella. How can you forgive that?" She smiled weakly and said, "Because if I don't forgive you, I will never have peace." A few weeks later, Stella died quietly in her sleep. Harry held her body and cried until he lost his voice. He buried her with his own hands. And every day after that, he visited her grave with flowers, whispering, "I am sorry, my love, I am sorry." Years passed and Harry never remarried. He raised David alone, and the boy grew up to be kind and wise, never knowing the full story of his birth. Harry often told him, "Respect women, son. Never trade love for success. It is a curse that destroys everything." And every time he said those words, tears filled his eyes, because he knew deep down, that the love he destroyed for a promotion was the only thing that ever truly mattered. The end. Moral of the story: never trade the people who love you for the things you want, because success built on betrayal will always end in pain. Thank you for watching till the end. If you do enjoy my story, please do subscribe to my channel. See you in the next story. Bye for now.